Hi, my name is Lindsey, and I am one of the resident historians here at the Buffalo History Museum. And we recently posted an Alexander Hamilton letter from our collection on Facebook, and we got a question about the strange-looking S's that appear in the middle of the words. So I'm here in our research library and archives to try to answer that question. So I'm really excited to talk about this because my background is actually in early modern intellectual history. So working with books and texts were a huge part of what I did. And it's also really exciting because it gives us a chance to pull some really cool pieces from our collection that we just don't get to share as often. So the S that you see in the Hamilton letter actually traces its roots all the way back to the 8th century CE, and it's derived from the Roman cursive S. So this is when the distinction between majuscule, which are the uppercase letters, and minuscule, which are the lowercase letters, was established. And the S developed into a more elongated vertical form. So at around this time, this new long S was used in all of the different positions in words. So it could be at the beginning, the middle, or the end. However, the usage at the end quickly died out, and the general rule became the long S never occurs at the end of the word. Instead, the short S, which is the one that we recognize today as our lowercase s, was used. So you would have the two forms existing simultaneously, kind of like what you can see here, where we have the S in the middle of post is different from the S at the end of notes. So obviously this makes it a little bit tricky to read because the long letter S looks an awful lot like the letter F. And if it weren't already tricky enough, you'll see here in this document that actually sometimes that S is hooked just like an F, which just makes your head hurt even more. By the time Johannes Gutenberg introduced the printing press to Europe in around the 15th century, the long S was used pretty standardly. Although, fun fact, movable type printing actually existed in China even earlier. But in Europe, the typefaces that were used were based on the existing font styles, which again are those handwritten documents that we have to show. But the long S was adopted when we had the printing press and carried into the print age. Interestingly, Bibles serve as a really good measure of the evolution of printing styles because they've been printed regularly since the introduction of the printing press. So I actually have a sampling of Bibles of different time periods from our collection to show you. I have here a Bible that was printed in London in 1599 CE, and this is definitely one of my favorite pieces in the library collection. But in this piece, you can actually see the use of both the long S in the middle of the word and the beginning of the word. So we have right here the word specified with the S as the elongated S, and then if we go down to degrees down here, you can see that because the S is at the end of the sentence, we use the short S. So again, even within the same sentence, you can have the long S and the short S and in different places. And here it's medial because it's in the middle of observations. So this page by itself has a lot of different instances of the usage of the different forms of S. The long S remained in use until around the 19th century when it began to fall out of fashion. Professional printers in Europe started to transition to using the short S instead of the long S as early as the 1790s. It continued to linger in handwritten documents for a little bit longer, but even that began to fade out toward the end of the 19th century. I also have here a printed Bible that was produced in the mid to late 18th century, and again you can see the use of both the long medial S and the short final S. And I know this one is very difficult to read, and I apologize because it's in Latin, but we do have in a couple different positions both the short S at the end of the sentence, or I'm sorry, at the end of the word right here, and the elongated S in the medial capacity. I also have a handy copy of our Bill of Rights from our gift shop to show that even in our founding documents, the long S makes an appearance. So our Hamilton letter, which was produced around 1793, makes use of this same type of S, and the medial S right here, and let me see if I can find an end S for you in this document. But it's exactly the same way that we see it in the Hamilton documents. So I'm back here with our Hamilton document, and as I said before, it makes use of both the long S in the middle of post and the short S at the end of notes. And what's interesting about this is because this document would have been produced toward the end of this long S's lifespan. Our final piece is a printed Bible that was made in around the 1860s, and as you can see, it no longer uses the long S. So in fact, we have some words right in here, and There is no long S in the middle of that word, and it's the exact S that we would recognize today. In fact, this probably looks an awful lot like if you have a family Bible or any texts that are a little bit older, they're gonna look more or less like this. It wasn't a bad run for the long S though. It was in use for about 1,000 years, which I think is pretty impressive. So thanks for watching. I hope this answers your question. Please feel free to send us any more history questions that you may have, and we'll do our best to answer them. And check back on our Facebook or social media channels to see more videos from our resident historians.